The Great Depression was the deepest downturn in modern U.S. history. It was also the longest, lasting over a decade, beginning in 1929 and lasting until 1941, when it ended during World War II. Leading up to the downturn, the Roaring Twenties boasted an unprecedented increase in share prices on the New York Stock Exchange. From August 1921 to September 1929, the Dow Jones Industrial Average had a six-fold increase, from 63 to its peak of 381. Economist Irving Fisher claimed, "Stock prices have reached what looks like a permanently high plateau." He was wrong. As the Roaring Twenties came to an end, a chain of crises in the financial markets set off this economic disaster. On October 28th of that year, a day that would become known as Black Monday, the Dow Jones Industrial Average plummeted nearly 13%. The following day, Black Tuesday, it fell another 12. By mid-November, the Dow had lost half its value. This downward trend would continue through the summer of 1932, when the Dow closed at its lowest value of the 20th century at 41.22, nearly 90% below its peak value. It would be November 1954 before the Dow would see the values return to pre-crash highs. Beginning in the United States and spreading around the globe, it may be the worst downturn in the modern industrial economy. The crash wiped out life savings and caused uncertainty with investors and consumers alike. The uncertainty and fear slowed purchases of big-ticket items. With slowing sales, companies like Ford Motors reduced production and furloughed workers. As unemployment rose, the economy worsened. Industrial production plummeted, cut down by almost half. GDP fell by 30%. Panic caused lines of despairing people to close bank accounts in an attempt to protect their money. These would be called runs and caused nearly half of banks to fail by 1933. Families suffered greatly during that time as the bottom fell out of industrial production. Unemployment soared, reaching a disastrous 25%, with nearly 15 million people out of work by early 1933. Workers fortunate enough to have work often took large pay cuts, as much of a third of their income, to retain their jobs. The unemployed and the underemployed alike filled long breadlines, with some reduced to begging for food. Food rationing was adopted to stretch household budgets. One-pot meals became common. To supplement diets, many families planted thrift gardens in vacant city lots. Soup kitchens, charities, and local governments set up lines to distribute food in an attempt to alleviate the suffering. One social worker out of Chicago wrote, "We saw want and despair walking the streets, and our friends, sensible, thrifty families, reduced to poverty." Hooverville's named for President Herbert Hoover. Shantytowns, built of makeshift shacks of corrugated iron, cardboard, and any other scrap material that could be found, became the homes of the evicted families unable to pay rent or mortgage payments. Cities were not the only places affected. Rural areas were not spared from the devastating effects of the economy falling off a cliff. Farmers in particular floundered during the financial crisis. Making matters go from devastating to catastrophic, a severe drought in the Great Plains region caused a series of dust storms in Oklahoma, Texas, and Kansas that became known as the Dust Bowl, leading to crushing poverty among shareholders. The psychological damage from all these hardships tore families apart. Divorces increased, husbands abandoned families, and teens dropped out of school, leaving homes and traveling to look for work rather than be a burden on the family. Birth rates dropped, as did marriages. Suicide and domestic violence dramatically increased. It wouldn't be until after Franklin Roosevelt took office in March of 1933 and implemented the New Deal that a recovery would begin. That's all I have on this one. Please subscribe and like. Stay curious.